beautiful ladies. Welcome back to another Women's Hour. I'm joined tonight by two very beautiful women. First of all, we'll go alphabetical order tonight. It's going to be, hello, Amy, welcome.
Hello.
And Cows. Welcome to Cows as well.
Hello.
Sorry to all of Birdie's simps in the chat. I know they're going to be absolutely devastated that Birdie's not joining us tonight, but she will be back again next week, I expect. And this week, we're going to be addressing the question from last week's viewers. So we asked for your super chats and you delivered. We have topic suggestions, and this week it is going to be OnlyFans and the kinds of women who are who upload to that site, who make money on that sort of, what do you call it, a service, an app, I suppose it is. And
platform.
On that platform, exactly. And coming off of that, we also have we had a late submission for super chat, and we haven't really sorted out. We haven't got all the details down for how topics get suggested. So we had a late minute suggestion that was, I think, of a comparable or higher cost of super chat to the topic we're going to do. So it's going to be a double bill. We're also going to be talking about anime waifus. That was the suggestion. I didn't pick the topic. You guys asked for it, and this is what you get it. So, bring them in. Keep the super chats coming, guys. And you could have your topic discussed next week on Women's Hour if your super chat has the highest amount attached to it, subject to all of the currency translations, all that sort of thing. Okay, so... Amy, I think, pointed out that these two topics actually do have something in common. And if I wish I had looked this up beforehand, but I believe I can do a poll where for the gentleman who is finding himself with a lack of female companionship, it's almost like a two ways you could possibly go, although they're not mutually exclusive. But the OnlyFans and the anime waifu is like the kind of two possible ways that you could take your loneliness. So Amy suggested that we could do a poll where I really have no idea how to do this. I'll try and figure out
how
while you're talking.
How many women does it take to start a YouTube poll?
Okay, I'm going to get you guys talking, and I'll try and figure out how to do the poll. Yeah, okay, let's start with Amy. Impressions on OnlyFans and the women who market themselves there.
I think I'm coming from a position where I don't necessarily think that selling sex or selling images of your body is necessarily like a bad thing that needs to be wiped out. I think it always will exist, and it always has existed. And I don't think that that's like a good thing or a bad thing. I think it just is a factor of life. My issue with it comes from with OnlyFans. You have this like huge democratization of it, which I think is bad. I think I saw a tweet, I think a month or two ago by, Ayala, is that how you pronounce it? Ariola, whatever she's called. And she made this tweet about how, like, justifying what she does as her living. And she said, like, well, if you look at like all of these paintings in art galleries, they're all of essentially whores. They're all courtesans. They're all prostitutes. And whores have always got, had a place in all strata of society. And I think that's true. But the difference, she was comparing herself to those women. And the difference between Ayala and those women is that they were a very small number of very high quality women who were given a lot of money by very high quality men. And what she does is the opposite of that. She receives very small amounts of money from, like, basically the sort of dregs of the male sex. And I think that that's sort of what she does and what they did, are not the same thing. Like, being a courtesan or like a demi-monde was was a social position. It was an art form, and it was not considered something that was necessarily a good thing, but it was a thing that had its own quality about it. And then whereas what she does essentially, they had to, be educated, be conversant. They had to be able to entertain extremely high ranking men. And what she does essentially is, takes sort of high definition videos of her pussy and her boob job and nose job and puts them on like OnlyFans for just like pond scum to like spank their monkeys over. And it's like it's just not the same. And I think that she sees herself as this, and it is just living in a delusion. And the fact that all of these women are trying to sort of, it's just become all pervasive in our society. This pornography is everywhere. It's in pop culture, it's on adverts that children see on TV, in the streets, and it's just as a result of that, it's lost any sort of level of what initially made that kind of thing appealing. I don't know if anyone has ever read, or I haven't seen the film Gigi by Colette, and then there was a film with Audrey Hepburn in, which is about a sort of turn of the century young woman who was brought up to be a demi-monde, like a sort of courtesan to a businessman, and she had very her aunts were like sort of more mercurial, that's not the right word. They were more like merchanty. Not mercurial means something completely. They were more
mercenary.
Like mercenary and practical and very cold and calculating about it. And they thought that she was like really slow. But the younger girl thought they thought the younger girl in the story was extremely slow and naive and was not destined for anything. But it was actually that sort of feminine naivety which won her the high status man, and these were women who were bringing her up to do that, and she kind of the contrast between the two levels of what was going on. That's what I think. I think when it comes to, I don't know if anyone's read the One-Dimensional Man by Marcuse, but they talk about like the repressive desublimation in which these things which were once sort of elite and sort of quasi mystical concepts have just been completely commoditized and destroyed by our sort of mass media and mass consumerism.
Yeah, the thing is, there's a few interesting points you've brought out there, and I think it's interesting that in one sense you're going in. There's a few sort of big directions that this has been pulled in. If we starting from that point in history with these courtesans, for one thing, because of the internet, one woman can now serve thousands and thousands of men. She's not limited by anything but upload speed, and that's why you can the what do you call it? The economy of scale means that the price for each individual man is much, much lower. But then also she's very far separated from the men who are paying her, so that she doesn't have to actually engage with them directly. She's at no risk of getting pregnant or getting an STD. It's very, I think...
She works in traditional porn, like she does actual sex acts with actual men and films it.
Yeah, that's true. That is sort of one step on the scale, but what we're seeing now is something completely removed from what my understanding is that many of the most popular OnlyFans models, they're almost there offering a girlfriend experience for the men who are paying her, so they're not really interested in watching her be with other men. I'm sure there are some who do that. But a lot of it is just photos and videos sort of just showing herself off. Almost like you've got this long-distance girlfriend who you're never going to meet, but she sends you messages and texts. And I believe that a lot of them have a pay level where you can actually get a one-to-one texting relationship with her or even video calls. So, but again, she doesn't have to ever judge you. She's never in the same room with you. I'm saying you as in the man paying. I think it must feel much safer both for the man and for the woman in this situation, and because it's so much less personal. So it's kind of the illusion of intimacy almost, I mean, it's always the illusion of intimacy, but at least with the courtesan, you're actually getting something, some genuine contact with a woman.
And courtesans worked quite late into their life, whereas if you work on OnlyFans, the more experience you have, the less your value goes down after a while. Whereas these women were taken care of for life.
Cows, what were your initial thoughts before we get into a deep discussion, either to Amy or to just in OnlyFans in general?
Yeah, I was going to basically say there's one end where a lot of them are kind of deluded by the past kind of, I guess, what a sex worker used to be. You see in older media, like historical contexts, even like video games, like I understand that they were like in Assassin's Creed, like the courtesans always had a sense of class to them. The brothels that they did their things in were very, very classy. You had to pay a lot of money in order to have that experience. There was even training that they had to go through in order to, act in a way that they should. Whereas now, I feel like it's a career path that a lot of people will approach almost out of desperation or out of laziness. You see a lot of stories where it's a single mother of 5 who made it big doing OnlyFans, or just someone who found themselves in a tight situation, going to that sort of career path, just out of complete desperation. They might have lost money or something, and there's a lot of them that'll approach that yeah, it was a tough time for me and I'll do it until I get myself back on my feet. But then there's other ones that Amy was kind of talking about that kind of approach it with a sense of pride, kind of. My God, I'm sorry about my mic quality. I'm looking at the comments.
Ignore all
we'll sort it out.
comments.
Don't worry, Cows. You sound. We can hear you fine. It's just a little clicking.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I think that's a great thing to bring up, and it did bring me kind of around to what I wanted to say initially about the topic, which is that I think I understand the temptation to monetize yourself in this way, and I think a lot of people, male or female, people who are kind of, we're raised in this materialistic society. We like to have money so we can buy things. And, even though we live in a very wealthy society where it's pretty good to get pretty easy to get a good standard of living, there's always more that we can have, right? So if you see money's just left out on the table and all you have to do is upload, photos of yourself, it seems like a really, really easy job. And you can I think I can understand why girls want to do it. And I really recall before OnlyFans really took off, I remember having a conversation in university. It must have been 2013, and just a random guy I knew from university was telling me about how he had a friend making money from selling her used underwear online. And he was saying she earned £500 a month. And me as a student who got £500 to spend for 6 months, that just blew me away. I was like, wow, really, seriously, that much. And you don't even have to do photos of yourself, right? It's just your underwear. And I think by that point in my life, I was sort of at the absolute lowest in terms of spirituality and ethics and personal virtue. I was probably at my most depraved state, and I was quite tempted by this idea of it's just this. You could be making money or you don't really have to give up anything, and I think men could understand that if you offered them money. I actually had friends who did this as well, not on a mass scale, but I had a gay friend at school who he was in a relationship, a really serious relationship, but his boyfriend didn't really mind him going online and making a bit of extra money, doing stuff on camera for someone else who he's never met before, right? It's a really quite this is just the world we live in. It's not what it once was. And I think when coming back to what we talked about last week about femininity and female virtue, these days women are so used to pursuing male standards of virtue and male ideals that we have kind of forgotten what it means to protect our chastity, to protect our virtue. These things we don't really care about anymore. The idea of like female purity, it's always like a joke now, instead of being something that's actually worthy of protecting, something like to understand what you actually are selling. You know, even if you never meet these men, or actually, you could actually be a virgin while, selling yourself online in a weird.
It's a short term, concept of value. Like they earn maybe they earn monetarily now, so they can. I don't know what she was spending that on, but I don't think it was anything of worth. Do you have any idea what she was spending it on? Just what students spend money on. But by having exclusivity, by having a sense of exclusivity, you create value. If you think about this like on a purely level of economics and desire, you create by doing these things which are considered like stuffy or old-fashioned or traditionally virtuous. You're creating exclusivity, which creates more value.
Yeah, I mean, I think putting it in those terms kind of devalues it, though. But I appreciate it.
I don't think it is. I think this sort of you. I don't know if you've ever met any females like this, but women who have just really they've got a lot of mileage on them and they've just experienced a lot, and it leads to a sort of breakdown of them personally, and them in their ability to have sexual experiences of any meaning, which is really tragic to not be able to, because these things, like I think on the right, things that because the left is so hedonistic, things like eroticism or sexuality and raunch are really devalued. Well, I think that they're crucial to human relationships and flourishing, and I think that these things need to be preserved and put back into their rightful place, as opposed to being used beyond all value or shunned.
Cows, you coming back on that?
I mean, I have a short kind of applicable story to this. I recently started teaching summer school home ec classes for my local high school, and I had this class of freshman girls. To all of my non-American viewers, it's like ages 13, 14, 15. And literally just like right in front of me as they were doing the assignment, they were talking about how many bodies each one of them had, and it was very just even when I was in school, like they didn't do that right in front of the teacher, and
were they using the word bodies like Jeffrey Dahmer or something?
Yeah, they were like, so how many bodies do you have, or how many bodies have you caught? It was like, it was very strange, oh, I guess the audio's better. Let's see if that lasts. But it was really sad to see, especially as someone who kind of grew up in like a rough area, knew a lot of girls that kind of screwed up in that kind of aspect of life and relationships very young, and just to see it just right then and there, just with the entire class like engaging in that kind of conversation, it was very jarring.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a bit off the track here, but I do remember even back in my day, talking about like maybe 15 years ago. I remember the first time I heard a boy in my class admit that he watched porn. Like I always kind of thought, like I knew it was something that some guys did, but I never thought that someone. I thought it was so shameful that even if they did it, they would never admit to it. And I was like that. well, you're just admitting it. That's so embarrassing. Like, why would you just say that in front of like boys and girls in the class? Like, he wasn't announcing it to the entire class. I just overheard it. But that was a real shock to me. And I think these days it's not even an embarrassment. Certainly, but among boys, it probably wasn't embarrassing back then. But these days, it's just kind of known, or at least it's believed that this is just something that all men do. And I saw, I've seen posts before on. I talked about these mummy groups that I go on online, reading what these women are talking about with their kids and what are they going through with their husbands. And this woman is just saying, like, it really bothers me that my husband is watching porn, but he says all men do it, and I think that's probably true. Like, am I overreacting? And then, like, just comments and comments of comments of women going, like, it's normal. Like, just, it's fine, basically. It's kind of just accepted as things that men just, like, it's like a biological, like, necessity, like eating and drinking. Like, oh yeah, men just need to do this. I don't know if that's, well, I know it's not literally true, but it seems like it's a very widely held belief.
Can you remember what those, like, those TV shows where one, it's got like Holly Willoughby and like Philip Schofield or something in it on a morning, and it's
No
like
idea.
this TV show. It's like one of those like morning TV shows on a weekday that, like, I don't know, middle-aged or old women watch, and they talk about, like, it's sort of not serious news program, and they talk about more cultural things. And they interviewed this sort of group of women who Channel 4 were making a documentary about, who were creating for their young teenage sons, some of whom were below age, a sort of inclusive, safe porn for them to watch. And this was like just considered it's talking. It was just considered completely acceptable for their children to watch porn, and for them to just like be openly involved in that. Their mothers, right?
Like the most you can do is make sure it's not a really super violent or extremely what do you call it, divergent form. Like, oh, I'm creating like a safe pornography, like so it's not extremely
it's
weird.
Called ethical porn or child safe. It's really strange and disgusting.
Yeah, so sorry, your audio's got a little bit worse there. I wonder if it's actually your some kind of bandwidth issue.
I have no idea.
Maybe that's why it comes and goes. I just wanted to make sure that I got that we're addressing the full spirit of the super chat, since this person paid money. So the question was the exact wording of the question was, what do you make of the LA culture, namely women making 6 or even sometimes 7 figures on OnlyFans just for showing their bodies? I don't really understand quite what the link is to LA, which I think is Los Angeles, I'm guessing, culture. Is this something that women in Los Angeles are known for? I mean, if I was making 6 or 7 figures, I definitely wouldn't live in LA. I'd go and live, in the countryside if I could work from home.
They're like hubs where celebrities, people who work in media, and like I guess high-profile men are, and sort of living there, even though it's gone rapidly downhill, still has some sort of status of old Hollywood, I guess. It's like lots of people dream about like moving to New York or like moving to LA. And also like the stuff that comes with living in LA, when you're surrounded by so many sort of artificially perfect people, you get this sort of push for plastic surgery and more commodification and keeping up with fashions, and it becoming like it's not a job, right? It's not something that you can turn off and come home at the end of the day. It becomes an all-consuming lifestyle, and one that the more you get drawn into it, the like less and less you can draw yourself out from that without wishing that you were, or without missing those, feeling like you need those like artificial like material items and consumer products and stimuli in your life.
Yeah, I think that's so true. This idea that it's all very well to be like an individualist, but the person that you are, the things that you do out in public really have an influence on other people, and it really is going to take its toll if you're just spending all day with extremely shallow, materialistic people who are all they're getting these really expensive beauty treatments, and they're eating this yummy, avocado toast that costs like $20 or whatever. Like, if you've got, like, the higher the standard of living of the people around you and the more expensive the things that they're doing are, you're going to want to, not just to be as beautiful as them, but to have the same amount of money. And I think the opposite is also true, where if you see other people around you having wonderful family lives and having a certain kind of modest fashion sense, having Christian values, I think that can also inspire people to want to be like that. I mean, it sounds kind of condescending to say people just want to be like everyone else they see around them, but there is a sense in which it's true. And that is something what I try to do on Women's Hour, is to just have a community where it's okay to talk about, where we're encouraging wholesome topics, not this week, but, just this, we're encouraging a certain way of life and a way of thinking that isn't materialistic, that isn't overly superficial, the way that I think a lot of modern entertainment is. So I went a little bit off track there.
Like even the like the way it's planned, the sort of planning of these like areas in LA, and the architecture, it's all just like sort of minimalist and faux Mediterranean and sterile. Everything about it is superficial and fake and devoid of any sort of culture.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have been to Los Angeles, but I've heard it's a complete dump. Like, it's this place where dreams get made, but really it's just a kind of, like, there's a few parts of it where the super elite celebrities go, and then the rest of it is a complete
It's terrible. The entire culture there is purchasing things.
And it's not what they call a walkable city, is that right?
No.
You have to drive everywhere. But most American cities are like that, is that right?
Yeah, it's very car centric. Many parking garages everywhere, right next to huge shopping centers. You have to pay top dollar in order to even access like the parks, the beaches, that kind of thing. It's really just it's just a cash grab.
I don't know if we're ever going to do a more serious political. I say serious. What I mean is more
serious for women.
Yeah, I guess more dry political analysis. But I do wonder to the extent that America has sort of set itself up as this libertarian paradise, as much as that it kind of exists in the world. I know it's not literally libertarian, but like this idea of just everyone going around in cars, paying to go into parks and beaches, like everything being a private space that you need to pay to enter, being a kind of dystopian version of the libertarian paradise. Oh, excuse me. Do we have more on OnlyFans and LA in general? I have this super chatter.
I was going to say, I forgot to bring this up earlier. I guess it kind of ties in, but there's a number of celebrities that have started to kind of like fall off for whatever reason, namely like the Catch Me Outside girl, Danielle Begroli, or Bella Thorne, the girl that used to be on Shake It Up, that are literally, like the super chat was saying, making like 6-7 figures on OnlyFans because of their celebrity status. And I do believe that's a large component as to why this whole making money off of doing this kind of thing is getting the attention that it is, because it's being promoted by people with celebrity status. They are getting signed, basically. Hey, if you make this much content on our platform, then we'll pay you this as well as much as people are willing to pay for it. And it's just like, it's not free advertising, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were already famous.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very true, and I think the number of women who are actually earning that amount on OnlyFans is by no means like a guarantee. I've heard that it's really depressing how many young girls, even if they're very pretty, very beautiful, like good figure, it's no guarantee that you're going to make loads of money, and they end up uploading all these photos that even they're ostensibly only accessible to fans. That's why it's called OnlyFans. There's really nothing. There's not much that stops those people from just screenshotting all of your pictures and uploading them for free anyway. And what often happens is that it's the same as anything. The Pareto distribution, there's a few women who are making 7 figures, and then most women are just making nothing. It's the same with YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, people think you can make money on YouTube, but I make before I started monetizing Women's Hour, I really was making nothing at all.
I think the mistake is that people think that it's looks, it's beautiful women. It's not. It's hitting certain instinctive stimuli, which is something that is more of an ability that some women have that others don't. It's not really based on looks. It's the ability to sort of
they've learned
it's
the
like
things you have to do.
Yeah, it's like like Twitter. There's certain sort of stupid, repetitive, mundane things that sort of get people's brains ticking. Like, oh, I need that. Like this, that make this a low and common denominator.
Okay.
Causes outrage. It's like that.
Well, there's always makeup. There's always filters as well. Now you don't even have to wear makeup. You just put on the blending filter to make your skin look smooth and make your eyes look big, and you can even get rid of your jawline. You can change that. You can make your waist look thinner and your bum look bigger. Like, you really get that hips to waist ratio just right. I think you're right that there's these women. It's not so much being beautiful as it is just knowing exactly how to game the system in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, that said, I was going to say that I think I mentioned before Belle Delphine is... she certainly has an OnlyFans, but she was popular even before OnlyFans. And what I think sets her apart, that makes her one of the very, very top earners, is not just that she's a cute girl who understands video games and nerdy references. She really understands meme culture. She's also quite funny and charming. She's sorry, what was that?
She's a troll.
She's a troll, yeah. Well, she's funny. You can imagine her like a cabaret dancer in 1930, right? She'd be like a child. Cabaret dancers, they weren't just strippers. They'd come out, they'd tell jokes, they'd sing. It was a whole act, and these women were quite charming and funny and interesting to listen to. And they, even though it wasn't really a respectable profession, they still kind of made an art form out of it. And I think the descendants of that kind of thing are these OnlyFans influencers who, other than just being hot young women, there is a kind of competition, I believe, for a certain amount of personality in it as well. Not that makes it better, but
Belle Delphine makes herself look like a child, dresses like a child, has the background of a children's bedroom, and acts and speaks like a child. And I think that the fact that most people don't want to be caught with child pornography on their computer, but this girl is above age despite being a child in every other way, has quite a lot to do with that.
Well, that too, and the fact that for a long while she made lewd content. She was begged for nude content for, to my understanding, several years, and she only gave into that when she knew that she was ready to stop making content. It was kind of her last kind of shebang, and then she kind of dipped. But there was always a kind of illusion of mystery to her. And then once she was ready to stop, she kind of revealed everything and stepped away once she had made enough money. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the media that I saw in kind of her era was about just not really knowing who or what she was. Just that kind of thing, I guess.
She's like Mr. Bean. You can't imagine her functioning in the real world. You're like,
Yeah.
she doesn't live in the real world. And yeah.
I think that does bring a good point that I wanted to bring up, which is that once it's out there, it goes for anything you put on the internet. Things that we're saying right now or our tweets. Once it's out there, you can't get it back, and you can try to delete it. But if someone was paying attention, they can always screenshot it or download it. And if I had a daughter I do have 2 daughters. If one of my daughters wanted to start an OnlyFans or wanted to, even just to send pictures to her boyfriend, which I also really recommend women don't do, just because once it's out there, you can't take it back, and you're never going to be, that's the thing about purity. Once it's lost, you can't really regain it. You can try to hide from it. You can pretend that this thing didn't happen, but the fact is that I think you're always going to be worrying about whether it's going to come back for you, and you don't know what kind of life you're going to want to have later on. And that was ultimately the thought that deterred me from wanting to sell underwear online. Sounds so gross to say it now, but back when I was 19 and I didn't have much money, I wasn't really struggling. That was the other thing, is that I didn't really need the money. I didn't have much money, but I wasn't trying to feed myself or anything. I had enough to get by. I had a roof over my head, and I could get on with my studies. But I didn't need it, and I couldn't take it back. And those are really the 2 main things that I would try to drum into girls who are thinking of going down this route. So, and also, what are you gonna, you don't need it, and what are you gonna spend it on? Like, really, what is worth that money? What are you gonna buy with that money that's gonna be worth what you've lost?
It's the desire to be desired. I think we can define, to some extent, divide women between women who want to be considered beautiful and loved and special and unique, versus women who just by a man, versus women who just want to have the most amount of desire thrown at them.
Absolutely.
I think there's a difference between those 2 ways of viewing personal sexual relationships.
Okay, do we have more, or can we move on? I thought that what Kals was saying about Belle Delphine was actually a good segue into our next topic, but unless there's anything else. Okay, let's do it. I've got some anime waifus to analyze. Thanks to our... Oh, by the way, I'll have a look out in the chat for our super chatter. Thank you very much for that donation last week, Mr... who was it now? Evil Ways. Thank you very much, Evil Ways, for our first topic suggestion. And for your donation. And if I see you in the chat, you want to have a follow-up question, do let us know, because I want to do your topic justice. But we will move on now to our second topic, which is suggested by DRT is King. I don't know what DRT is. I'm not endorsing whatever DRT stands for on this channel. I'm just reading out the name of the guy who sent the chat. He wants a review of common fictional waifus and a review of how A, common, and B, realistic such a creature could be found. The trouble here, Mr. DRT, is that I'm not really, I feel like, up to date on all of the current waifus. I can only analyze the ones that I sort of was aware of back when I was really deep into the anime subculture. Cal, I believe Amy is just going to be sitting on the sidelines calling out degeneracy when she sees it, but Cal's is a little bit entrenched in this with me, I believe.
Yeah.
So I have what I believe is the most OG, most popular waifus of all time. Let me just have a look. Here we go. We have Asaka and Ray. You got Amy. Have you ever seen either of these girls before?
You know that girl that Kenzie Puff that Red Hot keeps saying, get on Women's Hour, and we're like, no, she has cosplay in her pictures. Is that?
Oh yeah, that's what she's cosplaying as. Yes,
oh,
correct.
Disgusting.
Yes,
is she supposed to be married? Why isn't her husband intervening in this?
I actually, back in the days when we were doing this on the Academic Agents channel, I would never ever invite someone on who was cosplaying as an anime character. But I actually, as someone who still quite likes anime, to be honest, I am actually interested in having Kenzie on.
I bought that trad wife dress from Primark, and I was thinking of wearing it for a laugh this episode, but then I found out that Dutch woman did it on Tucker Carlson. I was like, it'd be lame if I copied her. But I'm like, I want to cosplay as that. If anyone wants me to cosplay as that, super chat po.
I'll cosplay as Asaka. You could be.
I'll make an OnlyFans of just me wearing the Primark trad wife dress cleaning my house.
I was actually thinking that would be a good joke to start, is that saying that we're going to start an OnlyFans and it's just going to be pictures of our recipes and our there's going to be nothing lewd at all. It's just going to be us talking about our gardening and our cooking.
me bending over the back in my Primark waifu dress with my lacy underwear showing.
Okay, Cows, now that you're back, do you recognize these two very popular waifus?
Oh yes, they're from Neon Genesis Evangelion, and
Have you seen it?
this is going to be a very controversial statement. I have tried to watch it many times, and I couldn't get into it. I respect it. I know that it's very reactionary, and I very much respect the themes, the Christian undertones, but I just personally couldn't get into the story.
I think Amy and some people in the audience who've never seen this are going to be absolutely baffled that you just said Christian undertones when this is on the screen. But you're absolutely correct.
Does Panama Hat watch anime with you?
No, God, no.
Okay.
I don't think he's ever been into it.
Okay, so for Amy and for everyone else, Asaka and Ray, I think that's sort of the prototypical. This anime was popular, I think, in the late 80s. It's popular now, like massively popular, but back then, this was still like anime was still kind of new, and this idea of like having waifus was not yet sort of born, and I think these two, they're kind of like the duality of female anime characters. They're very different. They may look very similar in their faces and their body types, because I think this artist only knows how to draw girls one way with different hairstyles. But in their personalities, they are very different. Where Asaka is very strident and very outspoken. She's mercurial, not mercantile. She is actually mercurial. Whereas Ray is very withdrawn. I was trying to think of adjectives for her before the stream. Just quiet, kind of. She's very serious, and there is like a very, very light undertone of sweetness to her that I think a lot of guys like. And the interesting thing about these two is that there's an ongoing battle between all anime fans over which of these two girls they prefer. It seems to be pretty 50-50 about which of these like personality types these guys prefer. So in terms of analyzing popular traits of waifus, their personalities can range wildly, I think. But there are some things that they have in common. And Cows, please jump in anytime you want to interrupt. Just start talking over me. I don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
Otherwise, I'm just going to go off on a rant, because I wrote down a bunch of things about these two, but also about anime characters in general, the kind of popular, the ones about the female characters who are really popular with particularly male fans. Mm-hmm. And you can, even just in this image, you can see a lot about them. First of all, I'm going to say that these two girls are, I think, 14 years old, which is outrageous in my opinion. They've, I'm someone who has, I'm not a professional illustrator or anything, but I've studied, I've done a lot of practicing of drawing people of different ages, different body shapes, male, female. I've drawn a lot of people over the years, and this is absolutely not how you draw a 14-year-old. This is ridiculous. It's stylized, obviously, but I think there's absolutely no excuse for drawing their waists. The waists are this thin. Their rumps this round. These wide hips. These like this body type. Maybe like a supermodel 19-year-old might look like this. That's not to say that like all drawings have to be realistic and you can't draw skinny people. You know, I love The Little Mermaid. I think is also like 14, and she kind of looks like this. It's not just anime. But you know, these characters, it's not just the very developed bodies. They also have very childish faces. And this is something you see in I'd say all female anime characters. They've got these big eyes. They've got very thin, small mouths. Very small noses. They're usually very pale. And it's extremely what you might call neotenous, I think is the technical term for when for features that commonly occur in children and infants. And it's kind of crazy how having a daughter myself, she's only 2, but her face, like it looks like an anime character sometimes, like these huge eyes, tiny mouth, tiny nose. It really it's like a hyperstimulus for cuteness. And then that's sort of contrasted with this hyperstimulus for sexuality in a way that I I used to kind of apologize for, go like, oh, I like anime, I know it's kind of pervy, but whatever, like, you do you. But these days I look at these like character designs, and I think it's not just another culture, it's also, you can't really defend it, in my opinion, that like it seems to be like shifting men towards sort of paedophilic tendencies. I don't have any evidence to support the fact that that is happening, but it seems to me that that is something that definitely could happen with these kind of character designs that play with age in this very odd way that I'm just no longer kind of comfortable defending.
Yeah. Well, if you go right a little bit to Misato, then
oh yeah, I was going to say
that will be a problem.
So Misato is, please. Misato is 30, and you can see that they draw her almost. Her body is exactly the same shape. Her face is almost identical, except that she's got a slightly kind of smaller eyes. I think she might have sort of more. I mean, I really can't tell the difference. All of these characters also look like Shinji, who's the 14-year-old boy male main character. Like, their face is just like, this artist honestly knows how to draw one kind of face, and they all look like a 14-year-old boy. Or rather, they look like a 2-year-old child in their facial features. But you can see her body looks exactly the same to these 14-year-old girls standing next to them. But sorry, you two.
There's something like innately wrong with like the Japanese psyche. I just think that something went like extremely wrong, and it's just intensified. Like, I don't like, if you kind of look back at their sort of art, there's always been strands of this kind of stuff, most notoriously with like parts of octopus anatomy has existed in Japan for centuries, and it just seems to be like not all right. They're not all right.
Definitely by our standards, and I'm not going to be a cultural relativist or whatever. I think it's not all right definitely by our standards. Putting it in a different cultural context, I think, can only go so far in terms of apologizing for it, or defending it rather. The only thing I will say on that is that that adult women in Japan often do have a slightly more neotenous facial features. So even though they don't have these really wide Disney anime eyes, they do have these kind of they don't have much of a kind of jawbone, the way that Western women do. The cheekbones and jawbones, their bone structure is quite similar to a child's. It's quite neotenous. So I can kind of see why they draw characters this way. But I still love anime. I love Evangelion, to be honest with you. I actually, there's part of me that loves these character designs. I think they like, the way that the not an outfit, what these uniforms that they're wearing to pilot the mechs. Like, I love the look of it. I can't switch off that part of my brain that really does love the way these characters look in a completely non-sexual way. I think they're well designed. Just the gloves here, like, it's very well drawn. Brilliant artists work on this show, but at the same time, it's very creepy. I'm conflicted on it.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I wanted to talk, because the super chat did ask about the traits of popular waifus. I wanted to talk about their personalities a little bit as well, because what they have in common, other than their kind of everything I mentioned before, they're both young. They're both teenage girls, and they're sort of innocent. Even though Asaka is very forthright and she speaks her mind, she does kind of sexualize herself a little bit, but they're both. I'd say they're both pure sexually. They, Shinji is like the first teenage boy or first man they've really been around. The anime girls, they I think pretty much without exception have like a completely clean history in terms of they've never even kissed a boy before. Like, they're always like complete pure virgins at the point of the show. These are the characters that become waifus. Like, to have like an ex-boyfriend, to have any kind of sexual history at all, would be extremely weird for an anime, which, kind of based, but also kind of just also plays up this idea of them being, sexualized children, unfortunately. And I think that kind of speaks to something else, which is that they are idealized. I mean, a lot of TV shows are, movies, books. It is an idealized version of reality, but I think that this kind of purity does play into why these characters get romanticized in the eyes of fans. That they are kind of perfect in a way that a real life woman with sweat glands and with all the I don't even want to get into it, but there's also if you ever had to live with a woman, they're not perfect. A woman is just a human being, no more, no less, right? Humans have flaws that a fictional character could never have, and they're not. Even having a relationship with them is going to, in the real world, has its difficulties. You're going to have to get into arguments about stuff occasionally. She's probably going to have a history of not just a sexual history, but just a life before she met you from the perspective of a man. That a character, an anime waifu or any fictional character just never will have. I'm going to stop mouthing off now and let someone else talk. Any takers?
I mean, you pretty much summed it up that. I think anime being so accessible to especially the younger generation. I mean, this sounds like very kind of gross to say, but it kind of gives them like a segue into adulthood. Like you were saying, they often have like very childlike features, and obviously lewd content with these characters and any of the characters of their wildest dreams is very accessible on the internet. And I don't know, it's just hopefully they can grow out of it and not grow up with some very strange tendencies, including having kind of like a warped vision of what a woman may be. Yeah, we're definitely not perfect.
I think most well-adjusted people, some people in the chat say it's like a phase for teenagers, which I think, just like what you said, is accurate. Like it's an important phase to go through before reaching proper adulthood. Is this phase of adolescence where you can try out ideas in a fictional form before you have to commit to trying things out in the real world, which can be dangerous. You can have these sort of you can play out these scenarios in fiction in your head, or just watching a TV show that it's a lot safer than trying it out in real life. Someone also said that Western women are very manly, and that's a good point I was going to mention about anime waifus, is that even the tomboys, they have a very feminine kind of disposition. Even if they have like boy hobbies, or if they dress kind of like a tomboy, their actual disposition is very cute. It's kind of childish, but to be honest, femininity has always been a little bit tied up with childishness anyway, so that's not exactly unique to anime. But anime girls are very feminine in a way that real life women, but especially Western women, as someone in the chat said.
I feel like that's kind of a cultural thing as well, because in Asia, I feel, and just like in other parts of the world in general, like gender roles are very much still in place in society. The girls will act like girls and the boys will act like boys, and that is true in their media, even if it goes to a more Western audience. The people who are writing it are coming from that sort of more traditional society, not to call 90s Japan traditional by any means, but it's definitely a lot more traditional than like the West is now.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but there is this sort of genre of Japanese art specifically, and Western art and Eastern art, kind of more generally of the, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, of the, I think it's pronounced like Bijin or something, and it's like the whole point of it is to express the sort of idealized concept of the beautiful woman, of the feminine woman, and this is something that kind of started around. There were sort of wood block prints that were somewhat easily made and were popular around the sort of growing middle class of the 16th and 17th century Japan. And it seems like this is like a somewhat a continuation of that. We're just watching it become more and more debased, I guess, over time, watching it like, coming back to this sort of democratization of beauty and femininity and sexual attraction in a way.
Well, I think you're definitely right that animation is a very expensive art form, and it does therefore require like a very large audience to buy it in order to make it profitable. So you get these. What happens is that anime has to be sexualized so that people will buy the Blu-rays. They'll buy I actually brought my my little figures with me. I've got my my anime girls here. These are from this is from my misspent youth. I haven't spent money on an anime figure for. Actually, I did buy myself an anime figure quite recently, but I've got these are my only ones. I haven't got loads. I can see Amy's disgust. I've got 3.
Pray for
okay.
Pray for her.
I think they're quite cool, but this is a character.
I'm getting messages on Skype from Alex saying, I wrote an article about that. Tell him to read my article. Go on his website and read his article.
I think people don't know who your Alex is. It's not the same as Birdie's Alex, we should be clear.
Can you imagine that? That would be a reveal. Yeah.
No, I didn't know. I'll have to go and read that.
Yeah.
Oops. Anyway, what was I going to say?
Well, you can say if you want.
Yeah, so animation is so expensive that they have to get people to go out and buy the Blu-rays and to buy the figures and to buy the merch, right? So they have to appeal. It's part of their business plan to make people fall in love with the characters, so that they'll go and spend money on it. In this, I think there's something deep in the male psyche that makes them want to get their wallets out when there's a hot girl that they like. In a way that can be easily twisted and manipulated, so that even if it's like six degrees of free, removed away from an actual real life human female who might want to be with you, men will still pay. Like the actual instinct to pay seems to be something I just don't understand, that men like to buy stuff or to give women money directly.
Maybe it's like a sort of primal urge of wanting to provide for the woman.
Seems like it could be.
This is a wonderful segue from that OnlyFans discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like these are very interconnected.
Do you have anything more to say on anime, or should I move on to? I've got a few things to say to wrap up the show from Birdie and from me. We're going to have to pick our winning super chat. But before that, have we got any more to say on anime? Waifus. I hope we've covered it sufficiently.
Yeah.
For the satisfaction. The our DRT is king, our winning super chatter. Our runner-up super chatter. For the waifu question, I meant it as more just looking at the archetype of waifus and how realistic these personalities are. Personally, I haven't met some common archetypes in real life. Yeah, unless there's a typo, I agree that they're not realistic. You're not going to meet real life women who are like this unless you're hanging around with children. Both their bodies and their personalities are quite childish in ways, but they're both too childish and too wise and agreeable to be realistic. Unfortunately, if your dream is to meet a real life anime girl, I don't think And I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It's not going to happen. You're going to meet a flawed woman with bodily functions and her own mixed up bag of baggage, and she's going to fall in love with you for all of, even though you're a flawed human being with all your baggage and bodily functions as well. I hope. that's what we're all hoping for anyway. I hope that topic was covered sufficiently, and I'm going to go ahead to what have we got now? I'm trying to check that. We had a super chat from Red Hawk that might be our winning super chat this week. Oh no, we've had some more come in. From the English Loyalist for $10 US. Do OnlyFans trade their personal freedom over money? Something I thought about. Anime kumas I think are worse, especially it leads to paedophilia. I've seen it happen. Another great stream, ladies. Love Women's Hour. Thank you very much, the English Loyalist. There's a few things there. OnlyFans models are trading their personal freedom over money. Well, I think money gives you personal freedom in one sense, but they're definitely trading something away for money.
I don't think that. I mean, we obviously see freedom as something as a freedom to do things, right? But I think that being locked in the sort of, hyper consumerist, hypersexualized sort of extremely fast lifestyles, that's not free. I think that you'd be more free if you were to be just prevented from doing that at all. Like, I think that, who's more free, the alcoholic with access to alcohol or someone with no access to alcohol at all? They're trapped by their own vices.
Okay. Thanks for that, Amy. And thanks, English Loyalist. From Sergeant Hoddle, glad to see the continuation of Women's Hour. I think that's a broom emoji. Thanks for that. The paying of OnlyFans simping stuff is disgraceful, especially when it's free. OnlyFans simps must be some really strange dudes, honestly, the lowest form of Kuma. Thanks for that, Sergeant Hoddle. That's for $20 US. That's very generous, considering you didn't even suggest a topic. Thanks for that. And I think our winning topic suggestion, and our only topic suggestion for this week, I guess nobody wanted to top Red Hawk's bid of $20. Everyone just gave up after he suggested that at the start of the stream. Topic suggestion: female submission to her man in the year 2022. Ali, real femme sapien, would be great to have on for this topic. Be well, ladies. Thank you very much, Red Hawk. And I'm going to get in touch with real femme sapien, also known as Ali. I've seen a few of her live streams, and I think she'll be a very interesting person to talk to. Either like a one-on-one chat about marriage and submission, or we'll have just a normal ladies roundtable topic suggestion time with her as a contributor. Haven't quite decided yet, but I'd love to talk about female submission. We talked. Red Hawk had the famous argument with Birdie on this subject over on AA's channel a few months ago. We did the stream Women's Hour episode called "How to Train Your Dragon" (brackets wife or woman), where I was arguing for a kind of model of female submission. But I'd love to hear what Ali has to say about it, and she has her own channel. You can go check that out, and I'll invite her onto the show. Possibly next week, since that's what we're now locked into, is to do this topic when it's been suggested. So we'll do our best. Thank you very much, Red Hawk. And I guess I'll read Birdie's submission to the episode. She's running another Steam fair called Sausage, Cider and Steam. It's on the 17th and 18th of September. Free to enter. There will be steam engine trailer rides, miniatures, stationary engines, barbecue, cakes, and cider, of course. There's an open day at the works, so you can take a look behind the scenes of how they restore the steam engines. That's her Alex's job, which I think is the coolest job ever. Also, basket weavers are very much welcome. I think the basket weavers were a strong presence at the last Steam Fair, so they may well make it this time. And it's in Tavistock in Devon. So, well done for everyone who went to the last meetup there. And for anyone who couldn't make it, consider going this time. I'll have a look at whether I can make it or not. I'd love to go to Devon. I'd love to meet Birdie again. And to see some steam engines and look at behind the scenes of how they restore them. I think that sounds really cool and interesting. Yeah, I think if you follow her on Twitter, there'll be more links, updates. I'm sure we'll be hearing about it on Women's Hour in the future. All I've got to say before I hand over to my guests to say goodbye is that I had a video out yesterday. It was called "You'll Own Nothing and You'll Be Happy," the famous words of the World Economic Forum. And it was something a little bit different. I edited a music video with using the animations of a channel called Leonardo of Biz, who creates these brilliant dystopic animations based in a 2030 World Economic Forum dystopia of living in the pod and eating the bugs. And I was so inspired by his work, I did my own re-edit to some music that I thought was... I was just inspired to do it, and I've got another video. I'm doing more videos coming up on normal kinds of topics. Amy, anything to share?
No, I don't have anything to share this week, no.
All right.
Will you be doing more like animated videos? Like, would you do your own like animations? Because obviously you like cartoons.
You know, I'd love to. Animations take so much work. It would basically require me to take like a week off work to solidly work on something, and it's something I've always wanted to do. To be honest with you, Amy, I love animation, not just anime, but also in Disney. I love cartoons and just drawing. I've had like ideas for animations. I've had ideas for comics, but it's just something I can't work on. Unfortunately, there's not enough hours in my week to do it.
Well, I really liked your video, and I would recommend people watch it, but only if they're feeling in a particularly resilient mood that day.
Did I go too far with it, Amy?
It was extremely depressing.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I blame Leonardo of Biz for that, because it's all his animations. They're brilliant. Yeah. So, Cows, anything from you?
Yeah, your video was awesome, and I don't have anything to say really other than if you have any mic suggestions, feel free to DM me on Twitter.
We'll sort it out, don't worry.
All right.
Cool. I think that's it for this week. We'll finish the show. We need to do like an outro. It seems kind of so that everyone in the chat has time to say goodbye. I'll put my animations on. Good night, everybody. Have a good night. Love you all.
Bye.